was just like any other kid, and people seem to sort of make me a half god playing Football Manager and making it to a real Football Manager. But it's like saying, oh well, I played Call of Duty, so tell you what, I'm going to go to war and do that. It's like not quite the same.
Hey everyone, it's Jake here. Listen, before we get going, most people that watch our videos don't subscribe. If you subscribe, we make the channel huge, we get incredible names, and it's great for you. So before you watch, hit subscribe right now. Thank you so much.
Hi Will.
Hi.
Welcome to High Performance.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
What is high performance?
Do you know how long and hard I've thought about this question? To me, it's winning. Because you can't have high performance if you don't win, or if you're not leaning or tending towards something. And to me, or the job that we're in, today, if you don't win, then you're out of a job, basically. So with that comes, an environment that you try and create. And in that environment, you allow, or I try to allow each person to be themselves and really try and express themselves. And it's easy to say that. It's like, go out there and be yourself. But it's allowing or giving that person enough space to be themselves and to enjoy whatever they're doing, but to always have, in the back of their mind, we're here to win. And we're here to win a lot, and we're here to win on a regular basis, and we're here to win on the long term, which is the most difficult thing to do. But yeah, today the world of football is summed up by winning games, or winning the most games over the longest period. So yeah, to me, high performance is all about winning.
And the reason we're talking today is because winning is something that you've proven you're very good at over the last few seasons. Before we talk about the specifics of your journey, your story, what you do and how you do it, let's just kind of break this down and have a really honest and quite vulnerable chat about what it's actually been like for you over the last couple of years to go from Will Still, unknown football coach, to Will Still all over every newspaper, every news channel. Your name is on the lips of all football fans, Premier League clubs talking about you. How's that been?
Totally weird. Totally weird, and it's been even sort of more weird for me this last week, because I went up to Manchester to see family last week, and I've been in London for 2-3 days now, and people recognise you. People stop you in the street and say, "Oh, Will Still. Right, Will Still. How you doing?" It's like, how the hell do you recognise me? Because you sort of, that in France people are going to recognise you because you're working in that league, and you're all over the press there. And in Belgium, well, I've come from Belgium, so people know you from that. But England to me was like abroad. People don't know me abroad. And I go to the Ashes yesterday, and people want photos, and people want autographs, and people want this, and it's like, hang on, this is totally weird, and still is weird today. And it's weird for my friends, it's weird for my family around me, but you just sort of get used to it.
Do you enjoy it?
I don't think it's a question of enjoying it or not enjoying it. You just sort of, you accept it, because I was that person 2 years ago, 3 years ago. If I'd seen you guys, I was like, oh, tell you what, that's them. I want a photo with them. Can I? Think I go up and talk to them? Do you think I can? Yeah, I was that person. And so now you're you're on the other side, and it's like, yeah, of course, mate, I'll have a photo without a problem. I'll do whatever. And some people ask you for, video messages of, to their friends and say happy birthday. It's like, well, I'd probably have asked for that. I mean, I wouldn't, because I'm too shy to do it, but yeah, of course I will. Not a problem. So weird and incredibly fast forward, because it's like everything has happened over the course of the last sort of 2 years in mega fast forward, and everything's happened so quickly.
Why do you think it's happened so quickly? What do you put it down to?
The social life we live in today, and the social environment that we live in, with social media, with newspapers, with all the media attention around it, and being, I think, half English didn't help, or did help. Because we know that in England everything gets blown up times 10, times 20. But yeah, I mean, again, you just sort of get used to it, and I never really think about it, and I know that's easy to say, I never really sort of get, my head lost somewhere in all the media attention, and my social media is going nuts, and you're having to ask people to deal it or with it for you because it gets too much. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's cool, that's great. I'll do an interview, I'll do this, I'll do that, but all I really want to do is win a game of football. And I get really, really annoyed when we don't win. So yeah, you get used to it, and you just try and sort of set it to one side and not forget about it because it's always there. But yeah, just try and stay will and try and win games of football, and that's proven to be enough, I think, in the last.
So what's the biggest
months.
difference of will today than 2 years ago then?
A lot more responsible and a lot more confident in myself. Because 2 years ago, I had loads of ideas and I could talk about football for years and years and years, and I could analyse games and watch things and see things. But I'd always need someone's confirmation of, what do you think? Have you seen this? Have you seen that? And, I'd get sort of not annoyed if they hadn't seen the same thing as me, but I'd doubt myself.
Yep.
And you'd sort of think, oh no, maybe that was wrong. Maybe, I was talking rubbish and that was something else. And then, when you're sort of shoved into the limelight and it's like, right, Will, you've got 5 games before the World Cup, just go and do it. Right. Without swearing. Let's do it. Let's have a go. And so when, you're in it and you've got to do it and it's got to work, then you find whatever way to make it work. Try and ignore all the pressure from the outside and just try and win a game of football. And not going to say it's easy, but I can put myself into that sort of frame of mind of, right, let's do it. And the fact of then winning it gives me, confidence in myself, doing all the media work, because, you've had them all. Every single news channel in the world has wanted a piece of it, has wanted to, tell the story. All the media from England, all the media from France. I had, people from the United States. And so it's like, well, maybe I'm not that bad. Maybe I'm doing something that's half decent. But I also know that you've got to keep doing it. And that's why, that's part of high performance. It's good to do it for a period of time, but you've got to do it over a very long period of time to be very good. And that's what I'm trying my very best to do. But it's difficult. So, still a lot of work to do.
I think the reason why people have cottoned onto this story is obviously this football manager on a computer game narrative, and then it emerges into real life football management. I think we can all understand that, right? Is there an element of frustration from you that seems to be the sort of dominant conversation? And I guess, do you attach as much importance to that period of your life playing a computer game that the media seem to have done?
I don't get annoyed at it. It makes me, I'll laugh about it and I'll chuckle about whoever wants to believe in that story. And I was just like any other kid, and people seem to sort of make me a half god playing Football Manager and making it to a real Football Manager. But it's like saying, oh well, I played Call of Duty, so tell you what, I'm going to go to war and do that. It's like not quite the same, Or I'll tell you what, I'm really good at Formula 1 on the PlayStation. Well, I'm going to drive Formula 1. It's, there's like a...
Which, by the way, Lewis Hamilton loves driving games and played them all his life, and he raced a remote control car as a kid. But the story never became that, whereas that has happened with you, hasn't it?
I know. And I don't mind it, if people want to attach that sort of etiquette to me. I'm aware, and I think, people around me are aware of how much work and how many years of, watching football, talking about football, coaching, going to university, going to, various different things to make it as a football manager. It wasn't just the sort of fast forward from, tapping my spacebar in Football Manager to making it onto the bench in Ligue 1. But it's a story that sells. People enjoy that story. People like to talk about that story. But again, I'm aware that it wasn't that simple, and I think people that really take an interest know that it wasn't that simple. But again, anything that had to do with football, whether it was FIFA, whether it was Football Manager, whether it was, fantasy leagues, whatever. I wanted to try it because it was football. And my mates were all doing it, so why wouldn't I do it?
So, if you'll permit us, then, Will, I'd like to use a formula that we got it off Sia Khaleesi, the South African rugby captain, that said that to him high performance was preparation leading to opportunity and then executing. And I want to talk about the preparation part of it because that's the bit that really intrigued me when I was preparing for the opportunity to meet you today, the hard yards you put in. Tell us a little bit about the story beyond the computer games and the actual learning your craft.
I know this sounds like fairy tale like, but ever since I was sort of 5 or 6 and I saw my brother Ed, playing football in the garden and playing football with his mates at a club, it was like, I want to try that. I want to play football. Quite enjoy that. So, set out, played with him, with, footballers that were 2 years above me and much bigger than me and whatever.
And this is in Belgium where you grew up?
This is back in Belgium where we grew up. And we were always different because we were the English family living in Belgium, obviously got bright ginger hair, which doesn't help. And so we were always different, but we were always going to be different because of what we look like, what we sound like and all the rest. And anyway, so I played football, wasn't the best at school, didn't really interest me that much, just didn't captivate me at all. And I never struggled, I was never like useless at it, but it just bored me to death.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, come on, I don't really want to go to school. And my parents were like, no, you got to go to school, you got to get a job, you got to do this, you got to do that, whatever. And by the time I was sort of 17, 18, I was finishing normal school in Belgium, playing at a decent level in Belgian football, and finishing school, it was like, right, what's next? What am I doing? Where am I going? I went into university studies doing physio, hated it, useless, total waste of time, should never have done it, and went all the way from September to January, did the January exams, and got an average of, I think, 1.7 out of 20 on the January exams.
No.
And I was like, right, well, that's pretty useless.
But you're bright, so what was going on there? Lack of interest?
Didn't interest me at all, and didn't captivate me, didn't interest me. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna stop this. This is not what I want to do with my life. This is not where I want to go.
And what was the conversation with your parents like when you
difficult, really difficult. And I probably got 1 out of 20 because I put my name down on the piece of paper, if I'm being honest. And so I turned around and it was like, no, come on, Will, what are we really going to do? What are you really going to do with your life? And the conversation with my dad, my parents had split up by then. I had a conversation with my dad and it was like, right, Dad, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? And he was like, well, what do you want to do? I was like, well, what I really want to do is play football. But not quite sure I can make a living out of playing football because I was decent, but I wasn't that good. And he was like, well, let's do it. Let's see what you can do in football. And so went through a whole process of finding studies in football. Belgium obviously don't do it because Belgium is a very sort of scholar system where you all sort of go through a sausage machine and you all turn out the same after the sausage machine. And then found Myerscough College up in Preston here in England, which was a foundation degree in football coaching. But it also allowed me to play football for the college and train in the morning and then have lessons about pretty much everything to do with the footballing world in the afternoon. Visited the college in March, got a place on the course, and then sort of went from there.
So what was the difference between that course in terms of your interest levels and how it ignited you with that course compared to the physio one?
It was football. And all I wanted to do was talk about football. All I wanted to do was either train, like myself on the pitch, or watch football, talk about football, see football. And I know that sounds pretty boring to some, but I honestly don't know what I'd do if I wasn't in football. And and the conversation, as you said, with my mum was difficult. It was like, yeah, but Will, football isn't a life. You can't make a life out of football. It was like, well, yeah, but I think I'd be deeply depressed if I didn't do anything to do with, if I wasn't doing something that had to do with football. And so it was convincing my mum, took a long time. she was like, well, okay, well, I suppose a foundation degree isn't too bad, so, go and do that and we'll see what happens after. But yeah, it was football or sport on a sort of general level. But, I tried the physio part of it and I was like, no, it's football. It's got to be football. And Myasco helped me sort of discover what else there was to just playing football and reading about football in magazines and newspapers, and really understand that there was actually a whole job opportunity behind it of there are so many things to do in football. You can be a kit man, you can be a physical prep, you can be a video analyst, you can be a coach, you can be a sports scientist, you can be whatever. But whatever you want to do is there for you to do. You just got to, take the opportunity and do it. And that's pretty much what I did. There was a part of the course that was video analysis. And I love watching games of football. You mean, give me 10 games to watch, I'll watch them all and try and understand what's going on. And that's what I did. Finished the course, came back to Belgium, because Belgium was still, home for me at that point. And yeah, then you sort of go on the unknown route of knocking on doors and trying to convince people that you can actually do things. And video analysis back in the day wasn't that big in Belgium. It was sort of the start of, oh yeah, maybe we might film a game and see what happens in it. So it was very start, and it was difficult convincing people that it was an actual job. And you get everyone saying, "Oh yeah, right, nice profile, good to talk to you. Cheers, mate. I'll drop you an email sometime." And you walk away getting your car and think, "Oh God."
So at this point, just for clarity, you'd finished the course, you'd graduated, you'd gone back to Belgium from England, and you were, to all intents and purposes, knocking on doors, asking for work, right?
Yeah, basically.
And how many no's?
Oh, I don't know how many professional clubs there are in Belgium. I think 16 plus. I think there are about 24 professional clubs in Belgium. 22.
So how did you learn to deal with that rejection?
It wasn't an option. It wasn't an option. If they weren't going to let me in as a video analyst or as a, something, I was going to make my way through something else. I was going to be a kit man. I'd sort of said to myself towards the end of, however many no's, okay, it doesn't matter. I'll pick the water bottles up. I'll put the cones out on the pitch. I'll wash the socks. I'll do whatever, as long as I'm with footballers and working in that environment. And got lucky. You need a bit of luck. Got incredibly lucky. I actually went back to the club that I'd played for as a kid, who were then in second division, and a door opened, or half opened, and I managed to put my foot in it. Went to a training session at STVV and went up to the coach and said, "Right, mate, I'm Will. I've done this and this. Could I be of any help to you in the next sort of couple of weeks, couple of months? Is it something you takes interest or that could help?" And he was like, "Yeah. Can you film a game?" "Yeah, I think I can film a game." "You cut video?" "Yeah, do that." "Right, well, our first opposition in the league is playing tomorrow in the middle of nowhere in Belgium. Go film the game, cut it up, make a presentation, do whatever you want, and come back to me in a few days." And this was on the Tuesday. The team were playing on the Wednesday, and went back up on the Friday to present, whatever I'd sort of seen and filmed. And it went from there. He was like, "Right, this is brilliant. Do the next one. Do the next one." And I was like, "Okay, but what about contract, or what about I didn't want anything, but in Belgium you have to be employed, or you have to be unemployed and get money from the state. I didn't really want any money. Money just didn't interest me at all at that stage." And he was like, "Yeah, I'll ask the club." So I stayed on. I was full time. Went every day into the office. Went to trainings, film trainings, and really got that sort of job going. And the club wouldn't give me a contract because there was basically no money, and it wasn't an option. So I was like, okay, whatever. I was still living at my mum's house. Had got a car, crappy little car, but I got one, and that was enough.
And what was your mum saying to you though? Because as an adult, I can imagine if that was my child, I'd be like, well, hang on, you've got a worth here, and you'd be pushing that you need to get some kind of recompense.
This is where I think I owe my parents a lot, is that they could see I was happy. And for me being happy, that was enough. And they could see that, there was something that was brewing and something that was in preparation. And they were patient enough to say, okay, you can live here, no rent, no whatever. Just make sure that you're doing your best and it's going to lead to something. And I was lucky enough that it did.
And what about within the club though? Because again, I can imagine that if they're not attaching any value to it financially, did they attach any real value to what you were offering them? Do you see what I mean? That it's respected and they can see that it's worth something.
The club weren't at all. Club weren't bothered at all. I was like, I wouldn't say a ghost, but I was just non-existent. And the coach wanted me there, and as long as the coach was happy, then it was fine.
Right.
And again, we were winning games.
So I think it's a good thing, actually.
Oh, perfect.
I would love my kids to go somewhere and work hard and not get paid and almost be treated like they're actually invisible. And I think that builds a resilience within you. I think it teaches you that the world can be tough, and also it actually tests your passion. Because it's all very well saying, I'm really passionate about this. Can you pay me 100 grand a week? Oh, of course you're passionate for 100 grand a week.
Yeah, no, exactly.
How passionate are you to not be paid and to keep turning up and to keep doing it, and for people to not even know your name and to drive your mum's car in? That's the test, I think. And
no, you look like a complete idiot, because you walk into meeting rooms. It's like, and with board of directors or agents of players and whatever. It's like, who are you? You just wait outside, please, mate.
But it's great because it's humbling. Because then when you get to the level you're at now, where you're managing in one of the big 5 leagues in Europe, and people want to know your name and have you do conversations like this, that moment of being grounded and being humbled is a valuable
asset. Yeah, no, sure.
It is for now, isn't it?
But that's just also the person I am, and it's made me become the person that I am today.
When you did that first tape and the manager went, well, that's actually brilliant. What do you think was on that he hadn't seen elsewhere that impressed him?
It's a great question. I've no idea.
Really?
And I've never asked him either. Because I never had to really think about it. And it was like, you're thrown in at the deep end, because it was like, I didn't have time to think about it. It was like, Will, the game's tomorrow. Go film it. Go and see what you can do. Bring it back in the next few days. So, I've been waiting for this all my life. Wow, I've got 2 days to do it all. And you don't have time to think. And it's like taking the job on now. You don't have time to think. And so it just, clicked something in me, and I'm like, right, it's got to happen. It's now and, maybe never again.
So let me ask you a different angle then from your Myers Cuff experience. What did you learn on that college course that you felt equipped you to be able to go into that professional environment and earn your stripes?
If I'm being honest, in terms of football knowledge itself, not like a million things. Going to college and talking about football was more learning about myself, because if you think about it, I'm half English, half Belgian, but I was always raised in a Belgian, environment. And now I'm going to college in the north of England, and I think Moscow, it's in the middle of nowhere. In the middle of Preston, where people talk funny. Because, I'd sort of been to England to see family, and I'd been to England to, spend a bit of time, but I've never lived in England. And living in England is like totally different. It's a different environment, different culture, different banter, different way of living. And I turn up in Preston, a little posh Belgian kid with, nice parents. And, you turn up in Preston and they all talk funny. And it's like, wow, what the hell am I doing here? Why have I done this? Why am I sat here in this class listening to, these northerners talk with their weird accent about funny things and laughing about odd things? And it's like, what am I doing here? And then, the course tutors come on and talk and make you feel a bit more comfortable and make you feel a bit more at home. But the first sort of 10 days, 3 weeks was like, why am I here? What am I doing here? I just want to go home. It's like, no, come on, you're not going home. It's football. Something's going to come of it. Something's going to work out.
That's what the conversation you were having with yourself.
Yeah, all the time, every day. And you sit there on your own in your room, a million miles from your family, and you're sort of thinking, why am I sitting here on my own? Why am I doing this? Why? And then, you train the next day and go to class, and you get used to the environment, and you get used to the people, and you get used to the rubbish banter that they've got, and it just sort of made me into who I am today. But it was really, really difficult. And, it sounds stupid for English people, but it's like, okay, go to the south of France and study something in the south of France and see how different people are.
Well, we were speaking off camera before, Will, and I was saying that Vincent Kompany attributes growing up in Belgium to have it one of the great assets that he believes it's developed in him is highly attuned social antennae.
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with people from Belgium, from France, from Germany that are close proximity. You've got people with Congolese backgrounds. You've got the European Parliament there, so you're dealing with so many different cultures and backgrounds that you have to learn to adapt. And I'm interested in what lessons you can teach our listeners about how to successfully adapt to a culture that they might not be used to.
Give it time. Don't judge, a book on its appearance, because that's what college taught me the most. I think it was like, oh, hang on. This is how big the world is, and this is how different people can be. And, nowadays I'm working with Japanese players, I'm working with African players, I'm working with French players, I'm working with Belgian players. We had Ballo on loan last year who was English. And it's like all these cultures and all these people are so different. How the hell are we going to get them into one room, onto the same pitch, doing the same thing at the same time? And that's where my experience of college helped me the most, I think. Is because I just kept putting myself in their feet and thinking, okay, what would I be thinking if I was sat there in that room with all those people around me and people looking at me? How would I react? And so it just gives me that sort of slightly better understanding of how a player feels, how a player is going to react, and how a player is going to perform ultimately, because I want him to perform. And yeah, that was the sort of trigger in my career, going to college and going out of my comfort zone and going to another country. It just opened my eyes on so many different things. And be patient, If you can see someone's not quite comfortable, if you can see someone's struggling, if you can see someone's, trying to put on a brave face, but he just wants to sit there and not say anything, then let him do that. And, and go and talk to him, one-on-one after and say, you're right, mate. Or, you sure you're all right? And he'd always put on a brave face. And the players, because a player has an ego and people have, their self sort of pride. But he knows that So he's already in a better place and in a better space. So he can go out on the pitch and he's got half a smile on his face. And if you then bring that sort of topic or bring that conversation into a team meeting, it makes it so much easier and people are then aware. And I did, when I took over, it's like, right, I'm big, I'm ginger, I talk half decent English, half decent French, I'm from Belgium, working in France, and I'm going to get things wrong. Deal with it. Junya Ito, he's Japanese, he pretends he can't speak English, but he can. He pretends he doesn't understand French, but he does. Eats rice every lunchtime for a meal. Isn't going to eat whatever we eat. Isn't going to talk whatever you're talking about. Deal with it. Marshall Munetsi from Zimbabwe talks about cricket. Runs a lot, smiles a lot. Eats weird things too. Makes a lot of noise, but he's not the most comfortable in that situation. Deal with it. Okay, and I just went through every player and said, right, we all have our own specifics. We all have our own weird traits of character. We all have almost that thing that makes us special. Just don't hide it. You know, don't try and put it away. Don't try and be someone that I don't want you to be. Just be whoever you want to be. Just make sure you're there to win games. And, you know, that sort of college experience made me into this, the understanding person that I am today of, right, yeah, if we want to win games and there are so many different people in the room, this is how we're trying to have to go and get there. And ultimately it worked for a bit this year and we got a few positive results, and yeah, the rest is history, I'd say.
How important then is it for you to be a vulnerable coach and manager?
You've got to choose your moments. You've got to pick your moment, I think. Because the players have to respect you as well. And so you have to show that you're capable of dealing with the shit that comes your way and the rubbish that comes your way. So when you're in front of them and the group is sat there in front of you, you've got to be normal, because players identify when you're trying to be someone else and trying to, pretend to be what you're not. And so I said, those were my first words. I'm Will. I know you, you know me, you know what I'm like. All I want to do is win a game of football. And I want to win another game of football. I want to win another game of football. I'm going to, mess things up. I'm telling you now. So please, if you've got to mess things up, mess as many things up as you can. But let's do it so that we're learning from it, and then we're going to win games of football. So yes, you've got to be vulnerable in the fact of admitting that you're going to mess things up and you're going to fail at certain things. But it's all right to fail. It's all right to get things wrong. And giving that sort of freedom to the players of getting things wrong on the pitch, it's like, doesn't matter, mate. Get up, stand up, do it again. So they understand that you can get things wrong, but that you're there to win. And if we're not learning from the mistakes that we're making, then we're wasting our time. So yes, I'll be vulnerable, and yes, I'll be accepting to making mistakes, and I'll be accepting to whatever you need to be in the best space possible. But once we've identified that space, and once we've got, you into a position where you can perform, it's down to you. And you're paid a lot more than I am to perform, up to you. And if you're not going to perform, then I'm going to tell you that you're not going to perform. So it's finding that honesty as well of saying, listen, mate, I've created this environment for you. I've built the team around you to do this. You know exactly what's going to happen. I know exactly what's going to happen. I can't control you. I'm not playing FIFA. Up to you. And as long as you stay honest, as long as you stay, to the point of saying, this is what we're going to do. This is the plan. If this plan doesn't work, then plan B or plan C. But at the end of the day, you've got to do the job. And if you're not doing the job, I'm going to tell you you're not doing the job. So you're understanding, but you're also in a sort of harsh reality of, high performance. We've got to perform. We've got to do this. And if you're not, then I'm going to tell you you're not.
And that's you talking at 30 years old, still incredibly young for what you're doing, but you've actually had 6 years of experience as a manager. So you did the period as an analyst, moved clubs, became an assistant. The manager lost his job. At 24, you were offered your first management job in the Belgian second division.
Yeah.
What were you like that day? The day that you were told you're now going to manage this team? How different was that Will to the Will that's just really eloquently described how he manages today?
I think that Will was the same, because he'd been through, those college years and that sort of early life in football where no one really knew me. And so I don't think Will's changed. I think the way the message gets across is maybe different or slightly better. But again, I was, it was like overnight. We played on the Wednesday night away. The club decided to fire the coach straight after the game. On the bus home, it was like, right, Will, as from tomorrow, you're coach. And you sort of sat there and thinking, hang on, there's another assistant there who's 52. There's one there sat next to me who's 56, who's got 52 caps for Belgium. Why the hell am I being... What? Why? And the president at that time, Egyptian owner, said, yeah, whatever, don't care about them, you're doing it. It's like, no, President, please, just try and understand me. This is like weird. There are better people for for this job.
Yeah.
And you just say, yeah, I don't care about other people. I like you. You've got good ideas. You do it. So, okay, President, I'll do it for the next game. I'll prepare the game on the weekend, on the Sunday. And, we'll talk about it after. Yeah, okay, whatever. Hang up. Right. Shit, now what? Turned around to the other assistants and said, right, the President wants me to do it.
Had he communicated to them or
no, not at all.
All to you, right?
Not at all. So, I turned around. The first thing I did was, are you all right with this? Are you okay with it? I've no idea what I'm doing, by the way. But are you okay with it? Yeah, whatever. Let's go for it. And I could, don't think I could ever thank them enough for saying yes. And
because that whatever's doing a lot of heavy lifting there, isn't it? They might be saying whatever because the pragmatism of I've still got a job, but there might be hidden resentments. There might
for sure, but I had no idea.
Yeah. So how do you deal with that ambiguity?
By being as honest as I could myself. I was a baby, I was a kid. I was 24, and again, I remember the next day we had recovery training, so everyone was in the gym, and I took no one out onto the pitch because normally the players that didn't play, go out on the pitch. But it was like, no, forget the pitch. We're in here, and got everyone together. It was like, right, if I'm going to be honest, we're really, really, really shit. We were bottom of the league back then.
Did you say that to them?
Yeah, but it was so obvious that it was like there was an elephant in the room. It was like, right, we're shit. And it's not criticism because we've all been shit. I'm not, aiming my criticism or my shitness at someone in particular. We all together have been utter rubbish. And I think we all know that. And the players sat there and sort of thought, yeah, we've not been very good. And it was like, right, so, I haven't got a magic wand. I haven't got the answer right here, right now. What are we going to do? And the captain, Fred France, he's called, Fred stood up and said, well, I'll tell you what, Will, we can't do any worse than we've been doing, so we might as well just, try and enjoy it. They'd missed promotion the year before for, 1 point, and they were then bottom of the league. It was like, we haven't turned into a bad team,
and how much
overnight.
of the squad was the same?
90%, 95%. We haven't turned into a bad squad overnight, so right, take fingers out our arse. Let's have a go. And that's just basically what we did. But again, maybe it was giving the freedom to that captain at that point to stand up and say, right, come on, let's take fingers out our arse. Because before that, it was difficult. Coach was very sort of, one way, one.
Quite dictatorial.
Yeah, very.
So how much thought goes into those first few words that you deliver to the players? And how much are you operating on instinct at this point?
At that stage, when I was 24, total instinct. Nothing premeditated at all. I was bricking it. I'd slept at the club after the game when we got back. Absolutely bricking it. Didn't sleep. I was like, I'm 24.
When you say I'm bricking it, take us into those thoughts.
My biggest fear was, I hope we're not going to lose 10-0. I remember sitting there, I was like, okay, what's the best team going to be? What are the 11 names that I can put out on that pitch that have a chance? And I knew they were good players, they were just playing rubbish. It was like, yeah, God, what if I get beat 10-0 and I'm the 24-year-old that turns into a video gag and, goes all over social media and mess things up and loses 10-0. I don't want to be that. So I had a very long conversation with my older brother. And it was like, Ed, what am I doing? He was like, okay, yeah, this is weird. I was like, yeah, I know, Ed, but come on, help me. And it was like, well, go back to basics. What do we do when teams are losing? Well, I don't know, low block, 4-4-2. Do that.
Exactly as the two of you would have been doing, in all honesty, on that computer game all those years before, right?
Oh yeah, or watching, Match of the Day, West Ham, whatever teams we'd been watching, criticising the coach. Yeah, because that's what supporters do. So, whatever, coach, you're rubbish. Get him off, take him off, do this, do that. And I had him on the phone. It was like, Ed, what we're doing. Yeah, 4-4-2, low block.
It's such a mad story. On the phone to your older brother trying to work out how to manage a football club.
What does Ed do?
Ed's a football coach now.
Right.
He works in the Belgian First
I
Division.
love it.
Still now.
But at the time when you phoned him, was he in football?
When I left my first role as a video analyst and went to Stade de Liège, the club STVV told me, Will, by the time they'd recognised that I was actually doing a decent job and, you know, it was actually quite useful, I went into the office, said, right, you know, the coach is leaving to Stade de Liège, I'm going with him. And they were like, well, we've given you a contract 3 months ago, you're not leaving. It was like, yeah, I am. I'm going to Stade de Liège because it's one of the best clubs in Belgium and, you know, it's an opportunity. Yeah, no, you're not. I was like, no, yeah, I am. You didn't pay me for a year, you didn't acknowledge that I existed. This club is now giving me a very basic contract, but at least they're giving me a contract and I'm, you know, going with the coach who gave me the opportunity. Okay, but before you leave, you've got to find a replacement. It's like, I don't know anyone, you know, what's that sort of deal? Oh, well, you're not leaving then. So, went back in my car, sat in my car for 5 minutes, was like, right, if they want to take the piss, I'm going to take the piss. Walked into the office, said, right, I've got a replacement for you. Who is it? Oh, my older brother, Ed. And they were like, no, come on. I was like, no, he's brilliant. You know, he's really good at what he does. You know, he sees the game how I see it, and he understands how to work all the video stuff because, you know, we'd been doing it. Take Ed. I think Ed was he was finishing his studies. He'd done a master's degree in business management or something, and he was in Canada, finishing that off. And it was like, Ed, right, come back to Belgium. You've got a job in football. Right, cool, right, I'm back.
Brilliant.
And he started and replaced me as a video analyst at the previous club. So we were doing, you know, more or less the same thing. And it was like, okay, well, what team am I putting out? And he was like, well, you've got to choose that, mate. I haven't seen them in training. I haven't seen them, you know, what the energy's like and all of that. Went out, played a 4-2-3-1. Pretty low block transition football because it was going back to basics. It was like, okay, let's go back to basics. What can they do? How can they identify things just in the simplest way? And we then went on a 10-game unbeaten run, winning 8 of them. And it sort of went from there again. And it was like, oh, I'll tell you what, I can do this. It's all right. I can live with it. I can deal with it. And yeah, again, the rest is history.
And what was the biggest challenge during that 10-game run that you hadn't anticipated that you had to deal with now as a head coach?
Attention from the outside world and pressure from the outside world. Because, you know, in the same way now, I've gone from being no one to suddenly existing in people's minds.
Yeah.
I was a 24-year-old who should never have been a head coach. I had only got my UEFA B licence, I think, at that stage. Who was coaching a team in 2nd Division in Belgium, who was on a 10-game unbeaten run. No one does that. And it was like, who are you? And so you get, you know, camera crews coming to film you all day from your home. And I was actually still living with my mum at that stage, which is embarrassing. You know, follow you through the club, film you during the game, film you post-match, and make a whole sort of, you know, documentary about who is Will Still, the next, whoever he was. And people criticise you. I got absolutely hammered in the Belgian press for the way I'd behaved on the touchline or the way I'd... No, it was a pep talk pre-game. So they'd film the pep talk pre-game. And I'm just honest. My language is, or came across as awkward back in the day because, again, Belgium is very sort of, you know, boxed off and structured and you can't talk too loudly and you can't make too much noise. It was football changing room language. You know, the F word comes out and whatever. And got absolutely slated.
What did they say?
Oh, Will Still, he's 24, he has no idea of the words that he's using, he doesn't identify the people around him, shouldn't be coached, fire him, should go back to school and learn how to...
Were you being described as English as well? So
I was being described as half English, half... They painted the portrait all right.
Right, okay.
Just absolutely hammered me.
And how did that feel?
Horrible, because I was watching it with my mum on the Monday night. It was like in Belgium they have the games at the weekend, and on the Monday night people go on telly and talk about the games at the weekend. And all of a sudden my face pops up in the thing, and the documentary is sort of, shown. The bit at half-time is shown. And yeah, even I was sat there looking at it and thinking, wow, well, that's not me, and that's not quite what I said. And it was all taken out of context, obviously, because when you take it out of context, then it looks bad. And, these 40, 50-year-old men, 5 of them sat around a table with, half of Belgium watching, saying how bad I was and how rude and how not educated and how, I should go back to school and, back to learning the language the right way. And it was like, my mum was sat next to me. And you sort of sit there and think...
And what was her reaction?
Speechless. Didn't say anything. I didn't know what to say. I was sat there on the settee next to her.
There's a recurring theme here. Right from the start of your career, when you didn't have a contract and you were being ignored at your first club, there's a recurring theme of being undervalued and misunderstood, actually, isn't there?
Yeah. Potentially, yeah. But again, never sort of really thought about it. And it didn't... It hurt a lot that evening. I remember, sort of having a weird 20 minutes where no one really spoke. And, I think my first question was, "You right, Mum?" And she was like, "Yeah. What are you going to do?" I ain't got a clue, Mum.
Most people's answer would be, well, I'm going to change the way I act to please other people.
But we were winning. We'd won the game. But
did it leave an element of self-doubt and am I doing the right thing? Do I need to do it differently?
Massive.
Yeah.
Massive. Am I allowed to use that language? The players haven't said anything to me, so I think it's all right, but maybe I should talk about it, or maybe I shouldn't talk about it, or maybe, I shouldn't talk to press anymore. Maybe that's the answer. If I don't talk to press, then they can't annoy me. But you have to talk to press because you have contractual obligations. Right, can't do that. And then it was like, okay, I'll try and deal with it, or I'll try and stick it to the back of my mind. Went in the next day, I was like, okay, people, you've seen it? Yeah, well, we've seen it. Anything else? Nope. It's like, right. Okay, well, put that to bed and let's keep going.
And do you think that was because they had the context that a TV viewer wouldn't have, so that was why they weren't interested in dissecting it?
Yeah, but again, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't...
Okay.
I wasn't insulting anyone. I wasn't... It was just kind of like, right, come on.
Yeah.
But maybe that's the perfect lesson, because if you want to live a life in football, guess what? This is the life you're going to live, a life of constant scrutiny, constant questions, constant doubt.
Oh, yeah.
That is the life. And if you're going to choose it, you have to have the sort of the equipment to deal with it. But, I mean, I love this because this is such a human conversation, because we all look at, you are managing a club in one of the top 5 leagues in Europe, going up against some of the biggest clubs in the world as a manager. And I think the outside world sees people like that as different, not as like everybody else. But guess what? Newsflash, you're having exactly the same thoughts, doubts, fears, worries, conversations with your mum that everyone listening to this podcast or watching this podcast would have.
Oh, yeah, 100%. 100%. That's what, and, someone at Lord's said to me yesterday, "Oh, Will, you're half God. You're unbelievable at what you do." It's like, yeah, no, I'm not, mate. I'm just Will. Well, whoever Will is, he's unbelievable. It's like, okay, cheers, mate. Thank you. But it never gets
as long as you never think that, that's okay. Let other people, and you can't stop them, but as soon as you think that, there's probably trouble.
Yeah, it never will, because I'm not. And I know I'm not, and I know that if I lose, the first 5 games of the season, I'm going to be sacked. That's just the reality of football right now.
So let's do the next sort of leg on this fascinating story. So you're managing at this point, because then actually you went back to being an assistant who got a management job again with a sacked manager and then became an assistant. And I think this is really interesting, because this was a period in your career where you actually had the courage to go, I'm walking away. Again, at a young age, which I think is really brave. Would you mind sharing that story with us?
Yeah, so the club that I was at when I was 24 went bust at the end of that season, which was also really difficult, because managing people that aren't paid for 3 months is something tough. And, they walk up to you and say, "Well, I'm not training." All right, mate, why not? Well, I'm being paid. Why would I play if I'm not paid? Yeah, fair point. Don't know.
How do you manage people like that?
Accept it. And
were you getting paid?
I wasn't getting paid at all.
Right.
And no one at the club had been paid. Basically, the last sort of 5 months that we were at the club, no one was paid. But we still got games to play. It was, I understand that we're not getting paid. I understand we should be getting paid. We were top of the league 5 games towards the end, and there was a proper possibility of us, getting somewhere.
And you were bottom when you took over?
Yeah, we were bottom of the league. But second division works in a weird way. It's like periods. So you win the first part of the league, and then you win the second part of the league, and then those 2 winners play against each other in the final. But it was like, okay, I know money's important, and I know, you all want a job, but the actual fact is we don't have a choice. Because you can't walk away from the club and go and sign somewhere else right now, because the club hasn't been, or declared as bankrupt. We haven't got a choice. So either we come in here and say, I'll tell you what, let's have a go, and let's just play for the pure, simple fact of enjoying football and playing football, or not play, and that's your choice, and I totally respect it. Not one single player stopped. We had a protest day because the media had come to training, so we didn't train that day, and the players had come to me and said, right, well, media are here, we're not training. Not a problem, fine. Totally get it. Anyway, club went bust.
So you created real unity then between you and the players?
Massively. It was easy though. Well, easy. It was made easy because of the environment and, conditions around it. But I'm pretty sure I would have asked any one of those players to run at that brick wall and smash their head through it. They would have done it because, that's what the team needed. Anyway, club went bust. Moved on back as an assistant. Spent 3 years at Beerschot. It was again back in second division. We got promoted in the second season. First year back in first division, the coach, Hernan Losada, he went to the MLS, got an offer from the MLS and left. And I was supposed to go with him. It was, he turned around and said, well, right, you're coming with me, mate. I was buzzing. MLS, better money, big money, different environment, different culture. Yeah, let's go, cool. Then the club turned around and said, well, where are you going? I was like, I'm packing it off. I'm off. Yeah, no, you're not. You're our head coach. What? Yeah, you're head coach. You're taking over. Right. Okay. And I'm 28 at that stage, and again, it's sort of like we've got a game in 3 days. And by the time the old coach had left, we were on a run of, I think we'd got 0 out of 21 or 24 points. So on a terrible run of form, right in the middle of COVID. Loads of players got COVID. I'd had COVID too. And it was, right, we'll sort it out. Finish in a decent place in the league. And then we'll see where we are at the end of the season. Okay, right. End of January, so we've got about 12, 13 games left. And I've all of a sudden become the youngest head coach in Belgian history or something, odd like that. And the media got hold of it, and it was like, oh, Will Steele's back. Oh, right, Will Steele from Ligue. He was like, oh, he's back. Won a few games, finished 9th in the league, which was slap bang in the middle of it. Did all right. And then at the end of the season, the club came back to me and said, oh, well, second season syndrome back in first division is always the toughest. So we're going to bring in a coach who's got, bags of experience. I think he was 61 at that point. Knows the Belgian League off by heart. So he's our new head coach. And I was not disappointed, but frustrated that I couldn't, keep the train rolling.
Yeah.
And didn't get the opportunity to prove that I could have done it.
Feel a bit undervalued?
A bit.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, cool, maybe. And that's probably the biggest thing that I've changed today is when you ask me, what's the difference, is like I'm a bit more self-confident, not a lot, because I don't like talking about myself.
Sure.
And I can't sell myself at all. So if people, ask me questions and want to know how I work and how it how I create an environment, how I create this. Not very good at talking about it. Don't like talking about it. And I can't sell myself, and people sort of think I'm a bit of a weirdo. It's like, yeah, okay, cheers for that, Will. We'll go to someone else, and they'll pick someone else who talks well and who looks good and whatever. And so this new coach came in, and so I asked them, well, you know, what role do you want me to have? Where am I going with this? And I said, oh, well, you know, we want you to be assistant because you're a great assistant. I was like, okay, yeah, not sure I want to do that, because it's weird when you've been a coach of, you know, a certain group of players to then turn back into an assistant with another coach. It's like he's got his ideas, but these players know that my ideas are these.
Yep.
And I don't know, just didn't feel it. And it was like, tell you what, I'm not doing it. For the first time in my life, I'm going to walk away from football and say, for the good of that team and those players, it's not the right thing for me to still be in that club at that point. And I'm off. What? No, Will, you can't leave, you can't do this, you can't do that. It's like, no, honestly, believe me, you do not want me at that football club anymore. I'm not. Wow. I wouldn't be in the right place. Well, yeah, well, you still got a contract with us. It's like, okay, fine, I'll pay whatever you want me to pay. I'll pay it off. Honestly, the best thing for everyone is for me not to be there.
Was there not fear there, though? Because once you're out the game, you're out the game, and this is a job offer. And
oh, yeah, scared shit. You know, I didn't want to be 6 months out of a job. I didn't want to watch, you know, other people talk about football and do football and give training sessions.
How did you quieten that fearful voice?
Didn't. It was like just one of those random decisions, one of those many random decisions that I've made in my life of do it. It feels right now. It should be okay. Just try it.
So was gut instinct a big thing for you? That gut
massively,
feeling,
yeah. All I do is instinct, I think. You know, really? I sort of have a think about it and think, does this feel okay? Am I okay with this? Okay, do it or don't do it.
Well, what changed in your relationship with the industry that you're the kid that came in and worked for a year for nothing in the shadows, and now you're the young man choosing to walk away and pay back a contract? What was it that had changed in your perception of the industry?
Not a lot, because it was as if I was being kicked out again. And, you know, in that first year, it was like, well, he's annoying. He's come to watch trainings and he's there, but we're not paying him, so he's all right. We can ignore him. And here it was, well, he's done all right, but, you know, we want a good coach in, and we want a coach that's going to, you know, be able to manage the team on the long term or whatever. The club actually went down the year after, and so it was just that feeling of, yeah, people don't really want you there, and people don't really, you know, go away. It was that feeling that you have.
But there's something that you said that you love football, so you'd have done anything to be involved in football. But now you're walking away from football, and I'm interested.
My perception,
had you learned to love yourself?
Yeah, my perception of football wasn't the reality that I was getting back.
Right.
You know, I was like, this professional world of football is a tough place, and people are going to bite, and people are going to attack you, and people are going to, you know, try and stick a proper knife in your back if you're not careful. So be aware of that, but don't lose the love that you have for football. Don't forget what it is you love. And, you know, for me, the love of football is watching it with my brothers, watching, you know, you guys on telly, watching Match of the Day on a Saturday night, going out on a freshly cut grass with new balls, your new boots on, and thinking, this is the life. I'd pay to stand on a perfect, you know, football pitch, freshly mown grass, with a ball, 15, 18 players or more, and a set of cones. I'd pay to do that. Because you feel so good, and you've got, you know, that new kit on, and pre-season is going to start in a few days, and it's like, oh yeah, best feeling in the world. I'd pay to do that.
I love your passion for it. I mean, there's such a value in being truly passionate about something and then chasing that passion down.
And the whatever I was getting back was that's not football for me. And I just decided to okay, That's your reality. I accept it. That's fine. My reality isn't that. And so I walked away and thought, what next? Maybe I need a few days off. So I thought about a holiday. And literally 2 days later, Stade de Reims, where I am now, my phone rings and I'm like, French number, it's a bit odd. Don't pick up. I didn't used to pick up people I didn't know. It leaves me a message saying, "Oh, hello Will, this is Mathieu Lacour from Stade de Reims, General Director. If you've got 5 minutes, give me a ring back." It's like, what? Yeah, showed it to one of my friends. He's like, "Do you think this is real, or do you think this is a piss take or something?" So no, Will, ring him up. So I ring him up and have a conversation and they say, "Oh right, Will, we've been following you since your days in Ligue when you were 24. We've come to watch a few sessions of yours this year without you knowing. Love your energy, love your style. We're looking for an assistant coach next year in Reims. Fancy it?" Yeah, I'm on it. Yeah, get me there. So I went down 2 days later, visited the club, visited all the infrastructure, which was different level to what I'd been at, and yeah, went on as assistant manager to Oscar Garcia at that point. And it was again, I had those first few weeks or the first sort of 10 days when you go into France and you're in a different environment, different culture, thinking, maybe this wasn't the best idea coming to France and doing this. But then you sort of force yourself to think, no, come on, it's Ligue 1, it's top 5 leagues in the world, good players, decent money. Come on, push through it.
Back in Preston again.
Back in Preston, same feeling. It's like, no, come on. And you're sat in a flat all on your own, and all your mates are 1,000 kilometres north. It's like, no, come on, do it. Only thing is, I'm on my UEFA A licence at that point, or finishing it, in Belgium. So it's going back and forth to Belgium twice a week, which is difficult. And to be honest, nearly killed myself in a car because, Wednesday, Saturday, going to these, coaching courses is tough. And so...
What do you mean nearly killed yourself?
Nearly fell asleep in the car, driving back and forth. And then I sort of thought to myself, right, either I've just got to push through and do my best to get these courses. And the weird thing is that about a week later, Vincent Kompany rings me up. And to me, Vincent Kompany is like a big thing. It's like, this is Vinny Kompany. And he said, "Oh, well, come be my assistant at Anderlecht, 'cause Craig Bellamy's just left." Yeah, great. But how am I going to get out of Stade de Reims, because I really enjoyed the time that I had there, but it was difficult with the UEFA courses. And it was like, perfect match. I can be back in Belgium, finish my coaching badges off, work for, one of the biggest clubs in Belgium, and work for Vinny Kompany. Well, it doesn't get much better than that. So told Reims about it. They weren't best pleased, but they agreed in the end. Found an agreement with Anderlecht, and then had a very honest conversation with Vinny of, Vinny, what do you want me to be doing? What is Will still going to bring to Vincent Kompany?
Are you doing this after you've had these difficult conversations with the club and
yeah,
you got the agreement?
Yeah. And drive up to Anderlecht, go around the training complex, almost sign a piece of paper, and then, see Vinny. It's like, Vinny, what am I doing? And I just couldn't see myself working in that structure, in that environment, because it was Vincent Kompany's environment. And I have the utmost respect for, Vinny Kompany's regime and his structure and his work, but I couldn't see myself working in it. And so I turn around and sort of think, I've messed it up. I don't want to work with Vinny Kompany. And it's not that I don't want to work for Vincent Kompany, because I love Vincent Kompany. It's, I'm not going to bring what he's expecting me to bring in that environment. I'm going to be totally useless at doing what he's asking me to do. But how am I going to tell him that? Because you've got to stand up and say, hello, Vincent Kompany. I don't think I'm going to be very good for you. And it's that, right. I pluck up the balls, ring him up. Vinny, I think I made a bad choice. Oh, right. Okay, well, that's fine. Thanks for your honesty. I'm sure we'll, talk again, speak again, whatever. All the best.
That's it?
Yeah. Oh, shit, that was easy.
You know what, though? There's a good lesson. Those things always seem they're going to be harder conversations than they actually are.
And I've never
conversations,
Vincent enough for his honesty in that moment. He said, well, this is the plan. This is what I want you to do, what I expect you to do. And if you're telling me that you don't feel up for that, then thanks for telling me. Great. Right. Cheers, Vinny. Yeah, no problem, Will. See you later. Great.
So what's your conversation back like in France now? Because that's amazing, the more difficult one.
As I'm driving home, Stade de Liège ring me up and say, Will, we just fired a coach. We want someone new and we don't want you to go to Anderlecht. I'd worked for Stade de Liège in the past. It's like, hang on. What? Yeah, we've just sacked the coach. We want you to come in here and be coach. What? I was at Anderlecht 3 minutes ago. Yeah, we know, but we don't want you to go there. So we're offering you a job here in Liège. Okay. Right, well, I'll drive down now. So I drove down the same day to Liège. I had a conversation with the board. Will, this is what you can do. This is what we want you to do. And there I felt, this is the role that I want to have. This is what I want to be doing. And working with a decent coach. So that was the right environment, right energy for me at that point in my career. So I signed again for Stade de Liège, finished the season off there with them. And at the end of last season, the head coach, Oscar Garcia, back in Reims, rang me back, said, right, Will, you finished your licenses, you finished all your rubbish off. Yeah, I'm all good. Right, well, you're coming back. Okay. The club agree? Don't know, don't care, I'll convince them. Okay, right. Next day, Mathieu Lacour rings me back, said, right, Will, coach wants you back. We're not best pleased with it, but
I was going to say, was there any bitterness there?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
Huge amount. Yeah. And I had my contract that I had the first time was better than the one that I had at the start of this season.
Oh, no.
So it was like...
Why didn't you just stay at Liège?
Didn't feel right. The club had been bought by American owners.
So again, that feel is right there.
It just wasn't right. It was like, nah, not the right environment.
But you're going from head coach there to assistant at Stade de Reims, yeah?
Yeah. But I don't mind that.
Because, the way football works now is you tend to have the assistants and you have managers. Like, have you reached a point now where you're a manager and you never go and be an assistant anywhere again?
Now, probably yes.
Yeah. But at this point, your ego was still not so big that you were happy to step down.
No, and I don't think it's... Yeah, I'm not quite sure it's ego-driven. I think it's just... I have my ideas and I think that this is the best way to play the game, or this could be the right environment for me. And then if I'm going to work for someone, then I want it to be, something that I've never seen before and the very best that I can learn from, like Vincent Kompany or Pep Guardiola or whatever. And so it's like at that point, no, great, I enjoyed Reims. I liked the league. I liked the club. I felt good there. I'm not going to have to be going back and forth the whole time to do my licenses. So, yeah, let's give it a shot. So signed back for the club, start pre-season. We're doing okay. We didn't have the best start to the season. But I think the most challenging thing was Oscar Garcia was going through... I don't even know how to explain it. His daughter was basically dying with brain cancer. And so he's never there, or very rarely there. And if he's there, there's a whole sort of energy around him that is really, really difficult.
Which is fully understandable.
Totally understandable. Yeah. And, it was never a conversation. It was like, if he's not here, then it's normal. we're not winning games. I think we were 18th in the league, and last season there were 4 teams that went down in the league, so it was difficult. And the club, turn around halfway through October or start of October and say, Oscar, we totally understand the situation, but we have a club to run. We have a club to, make live, which was very badly perceived by the French press, somewhere understandably. But wherever you're at in your life right now isn't helping us, and we can't.
Sure.
We've got to go different ways. So they sack Oscar, and I actually had a clause in my contract with Reims that said if they fire Oscar, they can fire me because Oscar was the one that brought me back to the club. And I was quite happy. I was like, okay, great. They ring me up and say, right, Will, we fired Oscar. And I was expecting them to say, right, you've got to go too.
And you were okay with that?
I knew it because Oscar was the person that brought me back to the club.
Right.
And I was like, well, okay, I get it. We're not doing very well in the league, and okay, what am I doing next? Yeah, you're not leaving, you're taking over. So what?
Well, what intrigues me on this is that you've just described that you've had that sense of bitterness that you'd left them to go back to Belgium. They've accepted you back in reluctantly because the coach is doing that. I'm interested in the relationship and what's happened or evolved in that time that they're now trusting you.
I think from the start they really liked me as a coach and as a person. And they were running a business, they're running their business, they're running a football club. And so they sort of set that emotional, human aspect of me going back to Belgium totally aside and forgot about it. And it was like, no, shut up. This is a business, you can't do that. And when I went back, I was just normal. I was like, I know you're annoyed, and I had the conversation with them to sort of break the ice a bit. It was like, I know you're pissed off. I know, what I'd done was a bit against sort of moral ethics and whatever, but that's what I needed to do.
So can I just pause there? Because I think this is a really underrated skill that I hear lots of football coaches say in hindsight, and you're learning it at a young age, which is managing upwards. The advice Alex Ferguson gives to young coaches is choose your owner more carefully than you worry about the dressing room, because they're the ones you need to keep on side. Yeah. So I'm interested in how you manage those relationships. You say so did you initiate that conversation to talk about the rancour and the bitterness, or did they initiate it?
Me, 100%. We went to have lunch. I was like, so I came back to the club, it was like, and I could feel in the room, when you get that feeling when you walk into a room that they're sort of half grinning at you and sort of thinking, yeah, you piece of shit, whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, okay, I get it. Can we just go and have lunch? Can we talk about it?
Brilliant.
Okay, yeah. So we went to have lunch. I had lunch with, Mathieu Lacour and the technical director. And the president, because the president is quite a big thing in France. And just said, I get it. You're pissed off. I'll try and give you back the trust that you've given me now. I'll do my best. I'm only me, so I might mess it up. But there's no point. We've gone through it now. We've done it. There's no point talking about the past anymore. Yeah, no. But we won't forget. Don't worry. I was like, no, I know you won't forget. I know you won't forget. Don't worry. But I expect, just to be honest, if I'm doing it wrong, tell me I'm doing it wrong and fire me. I'm fine with that. Yeah, don't worry, we'll do that. They fire the coach, and I'm expecting to be sacked. I'm not sacked. And I said to them, well, hang on, because what if I want to be loyal towards Oscar? And the second clause in my contract was I had to pay a huge amount to get out of my contract, because basically they wanted to avoid another club coming to pick me up. I was like, well, I can't pay that. There's not, I ain't got that money, Well, no, we know that. That's why we know you're not going to go. So that's why we want to make you head coach. So I haven't really got a choice. Well, one of those.
You need a bank loan.
And it was like, right, okay. Felt terrible, really, really seriously bad towards Oscar, and still do. He's never spoken to me again.
Really?
Yeah, no.
Have you tried to reach out?
A few times, yeah.
Yeah.
And his daughter died, a few months later.
Yeah.
And does he see what you did as a betrayal?
Yeah, I think so. Which I get. I totally understand. Because I think I probably would have thought the same.
Sure.
But I, literally didn't have a choice. It was like, well, either you're paying more than £600,000
Yeah.
to get yourself out of the club, but the club aren't sacking me, so I can't leave. And I can't try and be loyal to you. But again, he was in a space and whatever, which was difficult. So, and I had to win a game of football at the weekend, and it was like, well, you're only paying PSG, so whatever. It's like, oh god, here we go. So again, sort of diving into that total unknown of, right, you got a game in 3 days. You're playing probably one of the best teams in Europe. Deal with it. And yeah, never really looked back. Never really thought about it twice.
Was that the 0-0 draw with PSG?
Yeah, at home.
How good did that feel? Stopping them from scoring.
It lasted about 20 minutes.
And there you are, managing in Ligue 1 in your 20s against one of the biggest clubs in the world. You get a draw against all the odds, and the thrill lasts for literally minutes.
Oh yeah, and it was really
lesson.
weird. I've got all these cameras around me on the pitch, and you're going around the stadium thanking the supporters because we always do that. And it's like, right, okay, we've got a 0-0 draw. Yeah, we're playing away to Lorient next week. Now what? And it literally lasts like that much.
Moments, yeah.
And everyone after the game is like, oh, whatever, this is brilliant, this is that. Congratulations, huge. Yeah, thanks. Right, leave me alone now, I've got to do something else. And it always lasts, yeah. Nothing. Literally nothing. And you go on to the next game. And at the start, the club had said, right, well, you've got, I think it was 5 games till the World Cup. So you take charge for the 5 games and then we'll see where we're at. We'll see where we're going. Okay, that's totally fine. I'll do that. Do that for, 5 games. We go unbeaten in the 5 games. I think we win, I can't remember, to be totally honest. I think it's 2 or 3 games we win. Anyway, we're unbeaten in the 5 games. Comes the World Cup, the players are all saying, no, Will, you're staying, we want to keep going with you. Okay, well, I'm not going to decide, so, we'll see. The board turn around and say, right, Will, good job, well done. You've turned the energy around, you've turned the team around. Keep going to the end of the season. Yeah, cool, right. Let's do it. It's the World Cup, so we have a bit of a break. And then the club turn around and say, well, we'll renegotiate your contract, Will. It's like, okay. Just know that we're paying 25k a game for you to be on the touchline because you haven't got your pro license yet. Wow. So if we play 4 games in a month, yeah, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. It's basically £1 million a year for you to manage the football club.
Something like
that you're not getting. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't want it, though, to be honest. I really didn't want it.
But it's money that can't go elsewhere, isn't it? That's the point they're making.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, wow, thanks. Great opportunity, thank you.
So what was the renegotiation then? Up or down of what you were currently on?
It had to be up, yeah.
Because I was earning less than the first year, so
right, yeah,
I was still on
that's what I mean. We thought
but they worked it around bonuses and whatever,
right,
and it was fine. I honestly, again, I wasn't doing it for the money, and I think my salary leaked out into the press halfway through February or something, and every manager's salary was in the press halfway through February in Ligue. And people taking the piss because I was earning nothing basically. But it was like, well, I don't need that money. Anyway.
But can I just jump in here, Will? Because I'm reminded of that famous quote that Wenger said about the most important time as a head coach is the 5 minutes after a game when you go and speak to the cameras and you communicate a message that ripples through the club for the next week. So we've spoken about your relationship with the cameras and the scrutiny and that horrible experience when you were 24. What have you learned at this stage then, now that you're the head coach and things like this are being leaked out that then present that you're some guy that got lucky and that's why they're not paying you anything? How are you managing that? What lessons have you learned?
Ignore it. Not bothered. It affects me in a without it actually affecting me. And what I've tried to turn around is, well, hang on, let them try and understand who Will is. Open the door. And whatever press conference you do, whatever article is going to be written, whatever documentary they're trying to shoot, whatever they want, do it. And just try and be as normal as you can, and just try and show who I am.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, you know, no one actually knows me. No one actually, half the people in Belgium think that I'm that little, you know, shithead that did that bad interview or the bad documentary. The other half thinks that I got lucky and that I've been, you know, in the right place at the right time, which again is fine. But who actually knows you? Who's, you know? So I actually saw it as an opportunity, as to sort of say, well, you know, all these people are trying to work out who I am, then just be honest and open about it and open the door.
Brilliant.
And I know how opening the door is a dangerous thing because I've seen what it does. But be open and honest from the start. It's like, right, if you're going to screw me, I'm not going to give you the opportunity to, because this is who I am and this is what I do.
Mm.
And there was actually a thing that went out on social media where I'm talking French and English, talking to the squad, and you know, people absolutely loved that. But I know that the same video fragment, I would have got slated for it 8 years ago when I was doing it back at the other club.
Yeah.
So perception's changed and people see me in a different way, and it's like, right, well, this is me. I'm not perfect. I'm big, I'm ginger, you know, I talk funny in both languages. But this is who I am, so if you want to have a go at me, please have a go at me. But it's not going to, you're not going to, you know, knock me down that far, because I've not got that far to fall, because I'm just Will, and that's fine.
Yeah. I suppose the warning for you is you're in the build-up stage.
Yeah.
You know, like someone like Jack Grealish is in that at the moment. Build them up, build them up, build them up. You have to know that there's the other side to that. There's the knockdown. That's where you'll need to be even stronger than you've ever been before, I'd imagine, at some point in the not too distant future.
But I know that I myself haven't got that far to fall, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And I know, you know, I lose 5 games and people will start saying how shit I am. Yeah, well, that's football. I know I'm not shit, and I know I'm not very good. I'm just where I am at the moment. That's fine. And you know, I'm expecting it. It's going to happen someday. It has happened. It's going to happen again. That's the ugly side of the world of football. It matters, but it doesn't matter, if you see what I mean, if that makes any sense. So, you know, I'll be fine. I think I'll be fine. And I've got people around me to help me, so.
I love your honesty. I love how relaxed you are with it. You're just so sanguine and like straightforward, so matter of fact. There's no edge, there's no side, which is so rare in the game of football. We're about to do our quickfire questions, but before we do, in the spirit of honesty, and you know, so I think many managers would kind of sidestep this and just give the old, I'm happy where I am, one day at a time, one game at a time. How ambitious are you?
Oh, massively. Massively, because I've grown up again in that environment of watching the Premier League, and you know, we used to win the World Cup on FIFA with my brother. It's like, I tell you what, I want to win the World Cup. But I know that I'm nowhere near the Premier League, and I'm nowhere near the World Cup right now. But that's okay in a way, because I'm 30 and I've got a bit of time and a bit of, you know, I've got a few things to do before I get there. And it, you know, it makes me laugh when people ask me, "Oh, Will, you got to come to England. Would you come to England? What do you think about England?" It was like, well, yeah, obviously, you know, obviously you're bell end of, everyone loves England. Everyone wants to work in England, and I'm no different. And you know, just being here for a few days, it does feel like almost like home now, because I can sort of find my, you know, my roots, and this is, my parents grew up here, and somewhere down the line I do feel English.
Love it. Would you rather win the Premier League with West Ham or the World Cup with England?
No, that's an impossible question.
That's a horrible question.
That's
I'd rather Norwich win the Premier League than England win the World Cup.
Fair enough.
What would you rather for Man United?
Yeah, let's win the league.
Yeah. You don't need to answer that question.
That's all right.
I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't know.
Just both. One then the other.
Yeah, but so yeah, obviously being ambitious. I think everyone's ambitious, isn't he? But
Yeah.
You know, again, and people keep reminding me and saying, "Hey, Will, you know, just relax. Don't get ahead of yourself. Don't do this. Don't do that." It's like, yeah, I know. I'm not getting ahead of myself.
So do you plan?
Not at all. Not at all. Because if someone had asked me to plan what I've just done in the last 10 years, I would have told them to do one. You know, it's like no one's planned that. Who would have said that I was going to be a coach at 24? You know, who was going to say I was going to be a coach at 28 and then managing in Ligue 1 at 30? It shouldn't happen. Doesn't happen. And I've no idea whatever's going to happen in the future, and it doesn't worry me that much. You know, if it happens, then great. If it doesn't happen, then I'm sure there'll be something else, and I'm sure, you know, I'll find something else where I'll feel all right somewhere else. But again, it won't stop me being ambitious, and it won't stop me, you know, creating that high performance environment to win games of football, because, you know, every person in the world says they hate losing games, but I actually feel proper shit when I've lost a game. And I hate it. I hate that feeling of walking out and having to talk to the press and seeing the players, you know, spend 3 minutes being sad and then get on the phone, and having to go through that whole week of knowing you've lost the game and people are judging you because you lost the game. And it's like, I hate that feeling. Proper hate it. So I don't want to go through that ever, or as less as possible.
I bet. Right, we've reached the point for our quickfire questions. So the first one is the 3 non-negotiable behaviours that you and the people around you need to buy into.
Enjoy it, number one. And a lot of people say, "Oh, just enjoy it. You know, it's good fun." No, it's actually enjoy it.
How?
By being yourself. What better feeling is there than, like I said, walking out on a football pitch with the grass is perfect, your kit is perfect, you know, you've got 20,000 people scanning, screaming your name. How could you not enjoy that? Enjoy the game of football. Okay. That's number one. Number 2, commitment. Okay, if you're going to be part of our squad and you're going to be part of our team, you've got to go full for that team. You know, and I'll allow your ego to be as big as it needs to be, and I'll allow your personality to be as important as it has to be. And I think the best example of that is Balogun that we had this year. It was like, Balo, I know how you feel coming to France. I know how you feel in this environment. Just be Balo. That's fine. Okay, well, I'll do that. So commitment to the team. And Balo then understood that, yes, he wanted to score goals, but he was going to need, you know, the 23 other people beside him to be as good as that. And so it's creating that sort of, again, environment where people can be themselves, but realise that there is a common goal, and that common goal is only going to work if everyone's committed to it. So commitment is number 2. And number 3, I know, again, very sort of fairy tale-like and romantic, but honesty. If you think something's shit, and if you think I'm chatting shit, tell me it's crap. Be straightforward.
Yep.
If you're not happy with something, come and tell me. If you think I've made a mistake, come and tell me, because I'm going to tell you if you've made a mistake. And a lot of people say, yeah, well, it's dangerous, you know, being so close to your players and having that relationship with your players. It's like, yeah, but that's just who I am. And if they're going to accept that I'm telling them that it's bad, I need to be able to accept that they're coming back at me with something. And we find a level playing field where everyone can sort of agree. But also be honest sort of between ourselves, but towards yourself. Because a footballer's automatic reaction is when you say something's bad, you'll say, yeah, but this, and he was poor, and he was this, and he was that, and he was doing this, and well, the grass was a bit wet, and this was shut up about the excuses. Let's have a look at the video. Were you being bad? Well, yeah, I wasn't great. Okay, now we're getting somewhere where we can have a conversation where we can, you know, make a bit of progress and be able.
You know what? I think there's something that is, like, just as you're saying that there, Will. There's something that that I think is a superpower for you is your willingness to confront uncomfortable truths.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people would shy away from or find a way of doing it, but whether it's having that conversation with the club once you've left, whether it's having these difficult conversations with Vincent Kompany, or whether it's telling a player, there's something really powerful about how confronting uncomfortable truths. What advice would you give to a listener about doing that they could adopt in their own life?
If you have a specific goal or a specific target, and you've got enough passion and energy and drive to get towards that, whatever it is you're working towards, then I couldn't see myself being any other way. Be as honest as you can be. Have that difficult conversation, which in the end, as we said, isn't actually that difficult. It seems, like a mountain to climb, but it isn't actually that hard once you've said the first word. And be ready to accept some form of criticism, some form of backlash that's going to come your way, because it always happens. But do everything that you can to make that thing happen. And people are going to tell you, so many people have told me, Will, forget it, keep dreaming, whatever, you'll never make it. Yeah, I will. And I don't know how, and I don't know when, and I don't know where. I am going to do it. And I'll try whatever it takes to do it. And if, in the end it doesn't quite happen, then there's a reason it doesn't, quite happen. But I'm okay with that. I've tried my best. And again, I say that talking about football, but talking about other things in life, I'm totally useless at. Like I said before the podcast, I'm rubbish at sorting things out and doing paperwork and the banks. And when I moved to France, there was a whole logistical thing to it. Utterly useless. I needed so much help from friends, family, and whatever. So I'm incredibly grateful that I've got those people around me, because all the rest is just, if it wasn't football, I'd be pretty rubbish. So,
what's one piece of advice you'd give to a teenage Will just starting out?
Don't believe in the people that say it's not possible. I know, again, that's pretty fairy tale like, but do whatever it takes. Just keep going. Don't give up. Don't. If you sat there in your room thinking, this is difficult, and why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? If that's really what you want to do, and that's really the place you want to get to, just do it. I know it's difficult. I know there are going to be, 10 days, 2 to 3 weeks that are tough, or maybe even more. But if you've got one thing that you want to do it. And identifying it is also difficult, because what do people really want to do in life? So many people go through a job and do a job that they don't really enjoy. I couldn't do that. I'd hate to do that. It's like, no, well, if you've got a job, enjoy it. Do what you really want to do. And that comes back to the conversation that I had with my dad, is like, do whatever you want to do, and do something that's going to, make a difference to your life and make you enjoy your life.
Very good. If you could recommend a book for our, do you read?
I don't read it all, but there's an explanation to that.
Come on then.
I can't read. I mean, I can read ABC, but if I read a page of a book, by the end of the page, I'd have forgotten exactly what I've just read, because my brain just doesn't process it.
Really?
And I've really got to focus on that,
So what sort of learner are you then? You're a
visual learner.
Right, okay.
If I see a video, if I hear it, if someone talks about it to me, then that's fine, I can see it. But if I've got to read something, or read a book, or read something, it's like, well, forget it.
That's great.
And so many people have said, you read this book, have you read that book? No, I haven't. You must have read Alex Ferguson's autobiography. No, I'd love to, but I can't.
Life takes all sorts.
Yeah, no, but just as well, because otherwise I wouldn't be very far, to be honest.
If you could go back to one moment of your life, what would it be, and why?
Winning the title with STVV, so the very first club I worked for, at the end of that season, where I had nothing. Because that was proof to myself that it was possible. And I remember standing on the podium in front of all the supporters in the club that I'd played for as a kid. It was like, what is this? You know, I'm part of a club that I've just won the league with. I think I've contributed a bit to what the team did. And, you know, through all the not getting paid and not being, you know, whatever, I've won a league. You know, I've won this title and I've helped these people, you know, lift the trophy and be the best team in the league. And the fact of it being, you know, that club at that particular point in my life was the best feeling in the world. And it comes back to winning. You know, you win something, that feeling is just like, wow.
That's lovely. And the last question, your one golden rule for people that have listened to this conversation, for them to live their own high performance life.
To me, that's the most difficult question because I don't like talking about myself. Set yourself a goal and go for it, and just believe that, you know, it is possible. And again, that sounds very romantic and fairy tale like, but maybe the world needs a bit of that, because it is. Everything's possible if you just set your mind to it.
The thing is, that I think that's the perfect way to end, because actually we live in a world where we're constantly told not to believe in fairy tales, right? But then you sit in front of us and you basically are one. Yeah. And I think that for so many people listening to this, or people who are in their daily lives are told, you can't do that, that's not for you. Yeah. Stay in your box, stay in your lane, don't have ideas above your station.
But because it's seen as arrogant.
Yes,
and pretentious,
but I think it also challenges other people's beliefs. You know, anyone that comes at you with criticism are just reflecting their own insecurities onto you, right? They're holding up a mirror for the way they see the world. And I think that it's a really important conversation to have someone like you just say, have those hard conversations, work incredibly hard, believe in yourself, have the courage of your own convictions, make sacrifices, but at the heart of it all, have a passion, have a belief, have an ambition, and be totally unapologetic about going for it. And I think that is really, really powerful. And it's a shame that society makes us think that that's a fairy tale approach to life, because actually it shouldn't be. That should be the way we all approach life, because that's true freedom. And thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on all that with us. Honestly, it's been really interesting.
Thanks for having me. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thanks a lot.
Hey guys, it's Jake here. Listen, before you go, please do me just one favour. Hit subscribe. It makes such a difference to us. The more subscribers we get, then the bigger the channel becomes. The bigger the channel becomes, the bigger the names we can attract and the more impact we can have for you. So thanks for watching, and please subscribe right now.